development projects. And all have been not-for-profit life plan communities. So I really spent my entire career on the nonprofit side. Prior to working on development, I did public policy work. I was a lobbyist for Leading Age New York. And then I worked for Leading Age National for 10 years, covering the Northeast region. And so I've had the pleasure really of being at most of your campuses. I think almost every campus on the call today I've been to at one time or another, either in my time at Kendal or when I was on Leading Age's staff. So I'm happy to be joining you this morning. I put a collared shirt on. Normally we're working from home right now. The corporate office. I'm excited to tell you that in about a month and a half, we are going to be moving onto the campus of the University of Delaware, a new office building that's being constructed there. And so Kendal Corporation will be moving there. You'll see more about it, but it's an exciting change for us. The vibrancy of a college campus is just a great place for us to be. And so I'm actually headed there tomorrow for a construction meeting. Want to see kind of what the progress has been on our office. But so with that, let me share my screen. Let's see. Can everybody see that?
It says you're starting the screen sharing. There we go.
All right, let me do the slideshow from the beginning so you don't see all the other slides. Let's see. There we go. Okay. So what I'll do is I have a few slides, and then I actually have a video, which, when we're doing questions, it's a drone flyover of the construction site. So Enso Village will be Kendal's newest affiliate. It's under construction in Northern California. And it's a unique project, as you can see from the title slide, Zen-inspired senior living. So what I'll do is talk a little bit about the community and the marketing and development timeline, and then I'm going to spend most of my conversation on the green financing that we use to get the project to construction, and then the sustainability features, which are being currently built and which will be built into the community as we move into operations. So it's a partnership. It's Kendal at Sonoma is the corporate name. It's the San Francisco Zen Center and the Kendal Corporation have come together to create this new unique entity, Enso Village. The rest of the development team, although Steve Bailey has spent a lot of time on the development, we do have a development partner in Greenbrier. The White's company is the construction manager. Ziegler financed the project. We have a combination of architects, Methune doing mostly the interiors, and then H-Kit Architects, who are a San Francisco-based firm. And then Thornton Tomasetti is nice to be on that list too, because they are sustainability consultants. So they've kind of made sure from a design and a construction perspective that we've tried to meet sustainability goals as we move through the development process. Here's a map of the Kendal communities. It's only worth noting, this is our first foray west of the Mississippi. The Admiral in Chicago was our westernmost community until we made the decision to move to California. Healdsburg, for those of you who've been to Sonoma County, north of San Francisco, it's wine country. It's a cute little town. It's got a lot of great little restaurants, and so it's a lovely location. As I said, it is wine country. So there are vineyards all around. It's a place, though, that embraces kind of what this community, Enso Village, is going to embrace, which is, as you see in that first bullet, mindful aging, healthy living. Environmental stewardship is very important, both to the Zen Center and to Kendal, and in contemplative care as well, and in the way that we provide services at Enso. It's worth noting 221 apartments, assisted living and memory care. So I would note no skilled nursing at Enso Village will be developed. We do have a partnership with a nearby skilled nursing facility if someone needs that level of care. But California, like a lot of other states, is allowing a higher level of assisted living. So we really believe most of the care and services can be provided at the assisted living and memory care level. One of the unique aspects of our partner, the San Francisco Zen Center, you know, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the history. They drove the beginning of this project because they really wanted to find a way to let their the monks, the Zen teachers who have been serving the Zen community in San Francisco for many, many years, a place for them to retire. So there are going to be 20 apartments dedicated for those teachers. And then because it is Sonoma County, California is an expensive place to live. Sonoma is like off the charts with its cost. We are building 10 apartments, which are going to be, you know, really kind of staff directed, you know, from people of more moderate income. I mentioned the sustainable features, and I'll talk a lot about those in a moment. And we are positioning the community to hopefully, and we've been saying the first, so you never know if someone else will beat us to the punch, but we're working towards getting the community to net zero as quickly as we can. Enso is part of a larger master plan development, and I'll show you in a moment. This, it looks like a photo, doesn't it? I'm always amazed at the ability of the design team to create something. I mean, this is a rendering of what the community will look like. If you see my cursor moving around, you will come in. This is the main entrance. Dining and the health center, and really kind of the core of the community services are in this area. And then you've got apartments, and then there's a building over here, a couple of buildings over here you can see in this photo. Apartments here. I would say it's not shown because it's, again, a rendering of our community. There's going to be a boutique, a hotel, moderate income housing, and then some retail and some apartments, multifamily apartments built across the street from us. So this is a great view of the site as it hopefully will look once we get to completion. So some of the amenities and lifestyle features you find, San Francisco Zen Center, for those of you who are Kendal at Ithaca, I think of the two most famous vegetarian restaurants in the United States, you know, ones from the early 70s are Moosewood in Ithaca and Greens in San Francisco. And the Greens is an offshoot of the San Francisco Zen Center. So what we've done is in our partnership, we are building, it's going to be the first vegetarian bistro at a Kendal retirement community. In the beginning, we're going to only serve the residents of the community, but the plan is al fresco dining with some outdoor seating, which, you know, again, we've talked about serving the broader community. We'll see how that goes in terms of staffing and, you know, kind of what the future holds as we get to operations. But, you know, the rest of the list here are things that, you know, you're very familiar with at your communities, wellness center, a swimming pool, fitness, and you know, a little bit different. Because of our partnership with the Zen Center, we have a yoga room and a Zendo, which is a place for practicing meditation, the tea room, and then one of the unique amenities I want to highlight, and it is highlighted on your screen, is the maker space. And really, what that is, it's an art studio which will allow residents of the community to create. You know, we're expecting, you know, as you find at every Kendal community, artisans move in as residents and they want to, you know, share their skills. The maker space will allow that. It'll be facing the retail section of the master plan community, so there'll be an opportunity for folks to from the outside world to interact with our residents in the maker space. Again, some of the other items on here, the spa and salon, a guest suite, those are just normal. Performing arts center are all part of the community. The nice aspect, if I go back one slide, you can't see it, but there are walking paths. You can see a little bit of one right there. There are walking paths around the community, but we tie into the a trail system that Healdsburg has. So there's over 2 miles of paths, bike and walking paths, that are going to be available to folks who live at the community. Here's the site plan, which shows also not just our community, which is, again, I'm circling with the cursor. Here's the boutique hotel. They have a swimming pool, affordable housing, which we're going to share with the hotel, the 10 units I described earlier. And I think they're building 20 more on top of that. And then there's some retail, which I mentioned, facing the community, and apartments above. So the entire master plan project, Enso Village is ahead of the boutique hotel. I don't think I'm surprising anybody to notice that, the pandemic has kind of changed the dynamic in the hospitality world. So they assure us that they are going to definitely move ahead. They're just moving ahead at a slower pace than was anticipated before COVID hit. So a quick look at the timeline. We started marketing the community in 2017. We had developed a 1,000-person priority reservation list by the end of 19. And then obviously in March of 2020, the pandemic hit, and we hit one of those, one of those inflection points for these kinds of projects. These are big projects. And we had to make a decision. Some retirement community projects around the United States went on hold. They just didn't think it was prudent to move forward. But we, I call it a little bit of a dice roll. We went forward with marketing, and what do you know? The demand for the project was so strong that by September, less than 6 months later, we had reached 70% pre-sales. And today we're at 95% pre-sales. The development timeline, the only thing I would note here is, and again, I have been in development for many years. In the early 2000s, I was working for a company called New Life, and I actually talked to the Zen Center about a project that they were thinking of. They didn't have land at that time, and it was kind of a short conversation. But what do you know? Here we are all these years later. They ended up meeting with Kendal and having a series of conversations about it. The Great Recession obviously hit in 2008. Not a lot got done in senior living in 9, 10, 11. But by 17, we had signed that pre-affiliation agreement and decided that Zen-inspired senior living kind of matched very well with the kind of goals that we, as a Quaker-sponsored organization, so that our two organizations could indeed work together on the creation of this new community. So we got the site under control. I'm going to talk about the financing in a moment. We acquired the land in 2020. Again, a little bit of a gamble, just given what was going on in the world. And then we got into permanent financing and a start of construction. And we're on target for an opening in the third quarter of next year. So I know this is of real interest to the SAFE, the folks on this Zoom. The seed money for Enso Village was provided by an organization called New Island. And as you'll note here in these bullets, they are what's called an impact investor, and they're based in San Francisco. Their focus in trying to finance projects are to finance projects that have environmentally sustainable approaches and that will have a positive social impact. So, they talked to, the Zen Center and to Kendal, and this was their first investment in senior living. They've invested in other types of projects. So it was a kind of a big deal for them. And they were very enthusiastic about it because of the goals that Enso Village has set to reach net zero, to be a very sustainable community as we move into operations and on into the future. So the New Island folks provided money to acquire the land, and then they were part of what Ziegler has called, it was a green bond financing. When we went to market with the bond financing last June, we raised $300 million. It's an expensive piece of ground to acquire and an expensive place to develop wine country in California. But what we found was, because of the pandemic, there was very little going on in senior living. And a lot of the mutual funds who typically are interested in buying senior, these are unrated tax-exempt bonds. And a lot of the big mutual funds like to have a small piece of their portfolio in this type of financing. There were no other projects out there. So that, put it on a lot of the mutual funds radar screens, but really the green approach, the sustainable approach that we had embraced in this project was of particular interest to those mutual funds. So much so because they wanted to have those bonds as part of what they invested in. That you see there on the bullet, 7.5 times oversubscribed. So, and what that really means, and again, I'm not, I know enough about financing to be dangerous, but I can frame it this way. We went into the financing thinking 5 3/4, 5.5. That was what other tax-exempt nonprofit bond funds financings had. That was the interest rate. But as this project was so oversubscribed, it drove down the interest rate, so that we ended up with an all-in interest rate. It's the lowest rate ever on a new project in senior living, 4.35%. And as you note there in that last bullet, it saved the project millions of dollars in today's dollars because of the lower interest rate. So it's really heartening to me, because it sends a message that if you embrace sustainable design and you've got it kind of wired into your operations for when the community becomes operational, there is interest on the part of the financial community to support that type of project. So let me highlight the sustainable approaches we've tried to build into the project, and then I'll show you a few photos and we can have a conversation. As I noted, green, there was New Island with the seed money, land acquisition and development. Enso is going to be all electric, and that's worth noting. And you say to yourself, I remember when I first heard it, I thought, all electric, that doesn't sound like a sustainable approach, but actually, Healdsburg Electric Company is very unique in the sense that north of town is a geyser basin. And, again, if you're in a geologically active part of the world, earthquakes and all of that, sometimes you find these kinds of nuances. So because it is geothermal driven, electric is really a very wise approach to the provision of power at the community. So with the exception of our commercial kitchen, and I think the heating system for the pool uses natural gas, everything else at the community is electric. So over time, that really helps to drive this community's operations in a way that gets us to net zero. We, as part of the development process, White's Construction, they're a large national builder. They've done probably 50 retirement communities over their history. So they're very familiar with the kind of project that we were doing. So we made sure that they needed to, as part of the construction process, build in approaches that limited the waste that was generated during construction. So as you'll note there, we have recycling programs where we're going to use construction waste and it will be recycled. The dining program, I mentioned the vegetarian aspect of it. I'll show you photos in a moment, some renderings. We have an on-site organic farm, which will be at the community, and we're going to have a robust composting and waste handling program. We do have solar on some of the community at opening, but the plan is to add solar as we get further into the years of operation. And part of that is it was a cost decision, but I think it was a wise decision, because when you open a brand new life plan community, it takes 24, 30 months to fill up. So what we made sure is that the roof supports are there that can handle solar, and we'll add those solars as the community becomes operational. So, oops. Sorry about that. I had my phone quieted, but okay. And now it's it's not letting me advance suddenly. I don't know why.
On the back side, when I finish this recording, we can add those extra photos.
Yeah, a lot of what I had left was honestly just some pictures that you can take it to some time to look at. What I can do is, Michelle has it, so I know you can share it with everybody. Feel free to do that. I'm happy to, to answer questions or talk on any aspect of Enso that you would like.
And just to let everyone know, I've removed the spotlight on Frank, and so you can go back to your view on the upper right and gallery view and see all of us again. And if anyone wants to raise their physical hand or their digital hand, I can help with the Q&A. Ted Burrows from Lexington, and then Margaret Powell from Hanover.
So my question, Frank, first of all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, indeed. Hey, Ted.
I have audio problems and all here at times. I'm curious about the spillover possibilities from Enso to the rest of us.
In what regard, Ted?
Urging each of our administrations to get greener, maybe.
Yeah.
How can we get better because Enso is there?
Yeah. Here's how I would answer that. I think that's a great question. When people ask me to explain how the Kendal system operates, we're a federal model, which means corporate doesn't dictate it. Really, the decisions lie at the local level of our individual affiliates. But we do a lot of best practices and sharing of what's working at other communities. So I think, Ted, you're exactly right. As we get into operations at Enso and the announcement, we just hired the new executive director. We're a year from operations. That's about what you'd expect. She's joining us in a couple of weeks, and then she'll start to build her team as we get towards, really the goal is to have a full complement of staff when we open the third quarter next year. But I think as Rosemary joins us, the new ED, she'll be participating with other communities. And I think indeed, the message about what works at Enso will indeed spread through the system.
Thank you, Ted. Margaret from Hanover.
Yeah, just a quick question. I noticed you had on the map a railroad line.
Yes, good note, good catch, Margaret.
Yeah.
They built that line 20 years ago, and nothing runs on it currently.
Oh.
But they are talking, and so we've had to make the crossings. We had to really follow the construction techniques to make sure that the road is built in a way, because the plan is that they are going to connect us at some point, maybe 10 years from now. And if and when that happens, it'll be great because it'll allow people, for instance, staffing could take a train out to the community and not have to drive, or, obviously the bike paths are there, but right now those train tracks are not in use.
Okay.
Thank you, Margaret. David Peaceful from Crosslands has his hand up.
Yes, I have a friend in Los Angeles who just happens to be a water engineer he was for the city of Los Angeles. He was looking at Enso Village and had concerns about the availability of water in the future for Enso Village. And he was so concerned that he is now considering coming here to Crosslands instead. So could you speak about both the water concerns for Enso and the fire concerns too?
Yeah, the fire concerns are very real. And I don't know that there's anything that we can do to mitigate them. I think about 2 years ago, there was a fire in Sonoma County, not far from Enso, 5 miles away, which, you know, you hear that, you think, wow, that's way too close for comfort. That area has never burned, but that doesn't mean anything in the scheme of things. In terms of water, yeah, we had that conversation. There's assurance that that there is a sufficient water allotment for that part of California. But you know what, David, if a water engineer has some concerns, I am not surprised. It's a real challenge for Northern California. It really is. It's a very, very dry place. Strangely, and again, I learned this from some of my visits there. I thought, oh, it can't be that hot there. Is that good for wine growing? But actually, they get way over 100 degrees on a regular basis, and that actually helps to make the grapes. It uses up some of the sugar more and allows the grapes to be better for winemaking. But the fire worry is one that our disaster planning. The way I didn't get a chance to talk about the car barn. One of the things we were planning at the beginning of the project is underground parking. We ended up with a hydraulic car barn system, which is going to park cars in a tall building, 6 levels of cars. It's kind of hydraulically controlled. And it saved, actually, from a construction cost perspective, it saved really hundreds of thousands of dollars. But it's really a much more environmentally friendly way to store cars. And I think 26 of the cars in the car barn are electric vehicle charging stations as well. So one of the things I was going to point out, because I know I've been on calls with a lot of you as part of this sustainability project group, we talked about the goals of many of our Kendal affiliates to add car charging stations. And most of you are adding 2 or 3 or 4 to your campuses. I did brag at one point, Enso has 42 are planned at opening, and the ability to add some more as time goes by.
Thank you. It was a great question. Next, Ted Woolner from Oberlin.
And then
Two
one
questions.
And then one
Two
more.
questions. Yeah, 2 questions, Frank. One, why not renewable energy for the commercial kitchens and pool heating? And is Enso pursuing LEED certification, or even better than LEED?
Yeah, those are great questions, Ted. The food, the dietary folks, they have it in their head that, cooking requires extremely high heat. That I honestly believe it's a residue of an old approach to dining. That they needed gas, they needed flame to heat things. So I think it'll be something that we can have further conversations about. I don't know about why the pool heating system. It's not going to be used that often anyway. It's really only during the winter months. The plan is, Northern California is pretty temperate, even in the winter. But it's the only 2 places that we use those. So I think we'll have to revisit that topic. And what was the second part of it again? I'm sorry.
Oh, you're muted, Ted. There you go.
LEED certification.
Oh yeah, LEED. The community was designed at an above LEED gold standard. And one of the other aspects of the design of Enso was California maintains what it calls the red list. We're one of only 50 communities that have ever been developed in the United States that we're red list chemical free of all of the products that are going to be built into our community in the community spaces and in the apartments. So the red list really highlights. I mean, you know what? When I've opened communities in my past. When you walk in, that quote new smell that you have is really toxic chemicals that are coming off of paint usually, or fabrics or flooring. Well, we have really systematically in our approach been targeting the use of products that are not on the red list. And so we have a community that's going to open with none. In terms of whether we go to LEED for full certification, above gold, I would have a feeling we would qualify for platinum, but I'm going to leave that to the board and the exec there to approach it afterwards. It's been designed that way. I would tell you, Healdsburg, their building codes were, they've incorporated lots of the LEED, regulations that you would expect. So these days, I don't know that LEED gets you as much as you would think. I think a lot of communities just expect it now. So the approach to this community is going to be, once we add the solar after we're in operations, we're going to test and see if we are at net zero. We should be, the plan with all the work that Thornton Tomasetti's done with us is that the community will be at net zero by the time we get those new solar panels in.
Okay, I saw one hand go up after Ted's, and it was Stu White
Stuart.
from Hanover. Did you?
Yeah, Stu White.
Okay, unmute Stu. There you go.
Yes, it was really a follow-up to Ted's question. I was wondering what assurances investors needed, if any, like LEED certification, that you were going to achieve the green goals that you spoke about. Was there any hoops you had to go through to get there?
Stuart, that is a great question, and it's on the money, because we have had further conversations with New Island about another potential project. Now, I know I have 50 faces on this Zoom, so I know that there's nothing confidential, but I mean, it's a very early conversation. I don't want people running out and saying Kendall's doing another community. But you know what, when we talked to New Island about this new community, Stu, there weren't that many formal requirements written into the financing documents. But now, going back to New Island, they said, okay, we want you to up your game in the next community, and we want it built right into the financing document. So I think that's the way it's going to develop over time. I mean, Kendall, as Kendal Corporation, is very much trying to, what's worked so well at Enso. It helped us with, getting the community done, getting community support, et cetera. I think we will, as we move forward, start to build more of that right in, saying, we will, promise not to, and then list a bunch of things that we won't do, make value engineering decisions. I mean, there's things that happen in development when your budget goes out of kilter. You won't sacrifice some of the sustainable aspects of the community to those kinds of goals. So New Island, Steve Bailey could answer this a little better, but I'm paraphrasing. I mean, they said, yeah, you guys have done a great job. We love Enso Village, but if we're going to give you money for another one, then you need to do more than make those handshake promises. It needs to be guaranteed in documents.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Michelle, I think we'll move on.
Yes, thank you so much.